path. Have you ever lived through a moment when life seemed determined to knock you down, as if everything around you quietly conspired to push you over the edge? Those days when you wake with a fragile sliver of hope, only to watch everything you treasure slip out of your hands in an instant, leaving behind a cold, aching emptiness no one can fill. You search for answers, but all you receive is the unsettling silence of fate. Many people turn to motivational videos to soothe their pain. Yet that brief surge of emotion cannot shield them from the truth. Motivation alone is never enough to carry a person through real crisis. And it is in that very darkness that the story of Lucas begins, a young man who, in a single day, lost the life he had built, only to discover something far more precious than what he lost. If you want to hear the full story and the lessons that follow, consider subscribing to support us in creating more meaningful videos. Reflective question. In your opinion, what truly helps someone rise above adversity? A. Luck. B. Inner determination. Choose A or B, and share your answer in the comments. Lucas had always carried a quiet fire inside him, the kind that pushes a young man to believe he can carve out his own place in the world. For years he worked long hours, saved every spare dollar, and nurtured a simple dream, a small repair shop built by his own hands. But on the morning he was finally ready to step into that future, fate struck without warning. Fire tore through his rented room, reducing everything he owned, documents, tools, months of savings, to a smear of ash on the floor. He knelt in the ruins, his palms blackened, his voice trembling as he whispered into the smoke-filled air, asking why life would choose this moment to unravel. He had done everything right, yet everything had vanished. With nothing left to hold on to, Lucas walked away from the wreckage, searching desperately for meaning in a world that suddenly felt merciless. Rain was falling in thin, steady lines when Lucas stumbled along the street, his clothes heavy with sorrow as much as with water. He stopped only when the faint ticking of clocks drifted from a dimly lit shop tucked beneath an old awning. Inside, rows of silent timepieces surrounded an elderly watchmaker, whose gentle movements contrasted with the storm outside. The man lifted his gaze, studying Lucas with a quiet certainty, as though he could read the weight pressed against the young man's chest. "You're carrying a deep pain, aren't you?" he asked softly. Lucas's voice broke as he admitted he had lost everything and no longer knew how to continue. The watchmaker set down the clock he was repairing and leaned forward, his eyes calm yet piercing. "Then listen closely," he said. "Some losses are not punishments, they are invitations. And when you understand that, your story will change." The watchmaker began his tale with a steady, measured voice, as if each word he spoke carried the weight of years. He told Lucas about a skilled boatman who believed he understood every current of the river he traveled. For years the water had obeyed him, and he trusted it the way a man trusts the ground beneath his feet. But one morning, as he pushed off into the mist, his boat struck a hidden stone and shattered. Shocked and furious, he felt betrayed by the very river he thought he had mastered. Yet when he swam to shore, coughing and exhausted, he found the village chief, searching for someone who had just survived the treacherous waters. Our rescue party needed guidance, and he was the only one still alive to lead them. Had his boat remained intact, he would have sailed straight into the deadly current that had claimed others. What felt like ruin had, in truth, saved him. The watchmaker let the words settle, before continuing with another story. He spoke of a man who planted bamboo with unwavering patience. For 1 year, then 2, then 3, the soil remained bare, offering no sign of progress. Neighbors mocked him, insisting he was wasting his time. But the man continued watering the empty patch of earth, trusting what he could not yet see. In the 5th year, the bamboo shot upward nearly 90 feet in a matter of weeks. All those silent years, the plant had been weaving its roots deep into the ground, preparing for the moment it could finally rise. The watchmaker rested a hand on Lucas's shoulder, his voice low but certain. "You believe you've lost everything," he said. "But sometimes what feels like collapse is only the building of roots. Your story isn't ending, Lucas. It's preparing to grow." Lucas sat in silence, the stories reverberating through him like echoes in an empty hall. For the first time, he saw his own struggle reflected with painful clarity. He realized how desperately he had clung to the idea of immediate success, how fiercely he had believed that effort should guarantee results on his timetable. The fire hadn't just destroyed his belongings, it had exposed the fragile expectations he had been carrying. It forced him to stop, not to break him, but to unmake the version of himself that believed growth could be rushed. The watchmaker's voice dropped to a whisper, yet it struck Lucas like truth long avoided. "You're asking the wrong question. Instead of, 'Why did this happen to me?' ask, 'What is this trying to teach me?'" Lucas felt his chest loosen, a breath he didn't know he'd been holding finally releasing. From that day forward, Lucas returned to his life with a steadiness he had never known before. Starting from nothing no longer frightened him. What mattered was that he was no longer empty on the inside. He took a modest job at a small mechanical workshop, relearning the skills he once took for granted. At night, while the town slept, he studied management, marketing, and advanced repair techniques, pushing himself even when fatigue pressed heavily on his shoulders. He worked without waiting for inspiration, learned without waiting for comfort, and saved every dollar with the quiet discipline of a man rebuilding both his craft and his character. A year passed, and Lucas finally opened the repair shop he had once only dreamed of. What astonished him most was the person who offered to fund the final step, the old watchmaker who believed in him before he believed in himself. When Lucas asked why, the man simply replied, "I invest only in those who rise after the world knocks them down." The shop flourished, and Lucas became a quiet symbol of resilience for many young people who watched him rebuild his life piece by piece. One afternoon, long after his shop had become a familiar anchor in the neighborhood, a young man walked in with shoulders heavy and eyes dimmed by the kind of disappointment Lucas knew too well. He hesitated before speaking, as though the words themselves were painful to release, and finally asked, "How did you survive the day when everything fell apart?" Lucas paused, recognizing in the boy the same confusion and fragility he once carried. A quiet smile touched his face, not of pride, but of understanding earned through struggle. He repeated the wisdom the watchmaker had once offered him, letting each word land gently. "Motivation," he explained, "is fleeting, a spark that rises and disappears. Discipline, however, is the steady flame that keeps a person standing when their world fractures. And sometimes the very moment that feels like your undoing is the one redirecting you toward something far greater than you imagined." Lucas leaned closer, his voice lower, steadier. Success, he said, is not forged on bright days, when everything falls into place. It is shaped in the shadows, on the days when doubt is loudest, and quitting feels easier than trying again. Those are the moments that define a life more than any victory. Hand. He placed a hand on the young man's shoulder, offering not solutions, but the reassurance that comes from shared experience. And as the boy listened, Lucas felt the full circle of his own journey, how pain had become purpose. If this story speaks to you, stay with the channel so you won't miss the lessons that might bring strength on the days you need it most.